Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Hello, welcome to Creative Block. I'm your host V. Gene is out doing Q Bomb stuff, so definitely support his band Q Bomb and all the things they're putting out. They're working really hard on it. I am still doing the podcast while he's out and about. And I interview people in creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam. We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. And today with us, we have Alice Bissonnet. Hi!
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is so great. I've been wanting to have more French artists coming on Creative Block because France does have a workforce that participate in the American side of entertainment. And I think it's really great to have you because you've worked as an animator on Glitch Text and also storyboarded on Sing 2 and storyboarded on Arcane. So this is all super exciting. And I wanted to ask you about your career, how you became interested in art, if you always knew you wanted to go into animation, and how did you decide to go to Gobelins?
Yeah, well, I always drew. I've always been drawing. I discovered recently that that's what people remembered about me when I was in, middle school and high school. And I
Mm-hmm.
was always doodling, but at that time I didn't think I could make a career out of it. I was really into manga and I discovered anime because I think in France, anime and animation, Japanese animation was distributed much more than in the US when I was a
Mm-hmm.
tween.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just like to doodle like this. I went on forums like All Fan Arts and DeviantArt,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I saw those illustrators that were super good at it, and I was just a baby drawer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a high school where there were only two paths, like you could become an engineer or a doctor, but there was no other way. So it was very not even scientific, but it's just that's what you do to become quote unquote successful.
Yeah.
And so I tried to go like this, and I said, oh, maybe I can do something around, I don't know, airplanes or perfumes or science, a chemist or of some sort. And
Mm-hmm.
but I was way too bad at math for that.
Did you pick the scientific route in high
Yeah,
school?
yeah, I did.
Just for our American audience, it's in France in high school, as soon as you hit I think it's 11th 11th grade, you have to pick between three route, which is either scientific, literary, or economic and social. And so usually like kind of like I would say the culture way of looking at this, it's like science is the best. So all of the high school students are kind of pushed into going into science in 11th grade. It's kind of like the commonly accepted way, I guess. But yeah, so that makes sense that you were like, yeah, chemistry probably. And
Yeah,
then when you go into 12th grade, you have to pick between mathematics, physics and chemistry, or biology. Which one did you pick in?
I picked physics.
Oh, nice. Me too.
It was, I don't know in your high school, but in my high school, it was like the winner option. Like the math was for the nerds and biology
That's
was for
so
people who wanted to be vets.
that's so funny. In my high school, biology was the one that was like boo. It was like if you're really good, you're going to get into math. And I was like, I my self-esteem was so bad that I was like, I can't do math. So and I had a teacher in chemistry and physics who was like, you can do this. You're good at this. And I was like, oh, my heart. So I picked physics, physics and chemistry, which was supposed to be like the second best option in my high school.
Yeah, it was the same. It was there was this very cruel joke about what do you do with a box when you're in either scientific, economic or literary school section.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the scientific section create and conceive the box, the economic sell the box, literary live in the box. It
Oh,
was so bad, so cruel.
I can't believe. I mean, I believe it actually. Well, maybe we could talk about this a little later.
Yeah.
But French culture, it's is very different in a sense. I mean, I guess it's European culture overall than like American culture in terms of like, yeah, the I guess the kind of jokes or like kind of how cynical it is, I guess. Uh, you went into physics and chemistry, and
Yeah.
how did you hear about Gobelin? How did you kind of pursue that?
Well,
Did you have to convince your parents also? Like, how were they?
kind of. I mean, my parents were always very supportive, and like my mom thinks that whatever I draw, it's a piece of art. It's a masterpiece, like this beautiful cat. It's beautiful.
If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, definitely check out the YouTube video. Alice is drawing an amazing cat. It is a masterpiece.
It is. It is. It's. But they were afraid that I couldn't find a job if I would do a career in art. But at that point, I wouldn't believe myself that I could do a career in art. But as I said, I was following a lot of people on DeviantArt and on Orphanat. So I went to Japan Expo, which is a huge
Mhm.
convention in France about Japanese animation and all the all of that stuff. And I spent a lot of time in the fanzines area, looking at all
Mhm.
those people who drew much better art than I did, or at least that's what I thought and what I felt. And I talked to people, and one girl who actually did Gobelin, which her nickname was Nefila. I don't remember her actual name. And she told me she looked at some of my drawings because I showed her, and she said, I think you should try Gobelin or animation. I think you have a good style for animation, and you should try this. So she put the seed in my brain that I could try this. And when I was in senior year, I was still hesitating. I was candidating to do physics. Uh,
Mhm.
Physics schools, and on the right side of the door of my classroom there was a poster for a physics school, and on the left side, I don't know why, there was a poster for Gobelin for the open
Are
days.
you
Or
kidding
no, I
me?
swear. And I was like,
That's
what
crazy.
where did that come from, and what is this? I remember it was a picture of the front side of the building of Gobelin, and there was a lock in front of it, like, it's open right now, go and visit us. So I went there and I saw what they did, and it was witchcraft. And I said, that's so cool, that's like, you can do this. And I bought some student magazines about careers, and I saw that you could not only work in animation in France, but that it was quite okay, salary speaking.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's not like in the US right now, but it was reassuring for my parents when I showed them. So I said, "You're young, you can try for a few years, and we'll see what comes out of it."
Yeah, that's really funny. This is like a movie. Like, you have like the two posters. That feels, it really feels like a movie.
But when I saw what they did in Gobelin, there was no question for me. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
and I think what helped is that I got refused from the physics school as well. They said,
Yes.
so, oh, well, let's go draw some Mickeys and do some art and we'll see.
So I think it's something that's really funny because it is true that a lot of people in France, like, I don't know why we say that, but we say like working in animation is like drawing Mickey as the opposite of like fine art, where like you would paint like a big canvas or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, like it's something people say. That's so interesting. How old were you when you got into Gobelin?
I was 19.
So was it just right after high school?
No, it was, I I tried twice to get into Gobelin. The first time, well, that's when I met you actually. The first time I tried the MK school, which is in the south of France, and I tried Gobelin, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have technical level to get into Gobelin. But it was very interesting to try, even if I didn't have the level.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried another time, and this time I got into. I'm a year younger than most of the people. I graduated at 17.
Yeah, I think it's something I mean, there was a moment on Tumblr, a lot of people were asking about Gobelin and like the tuition, how to get in, da 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 da. I think it's very common for people to try at least twice to get in. I've heard people also trying up to 4 to 5 times to get in. But yeah, like I also tried twice before I was able to get in the school. Did you what did you do during that year?
So after I graduated from high school, I did 1 year of MANA. So it's I don't know the American equivalent, but it's to get level-based art formation at Duperré.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's a Parisian public school. But what I didn't know, because I just really randomly picked a public school in Paris, like, okay, there are four, let's pick this one. And I
mm-hmm.
applied, I got in, and on the first day of school, they say, okay, it's welcome to the school that focuses on clothing and stylism.
Oh yeah, because all of these schools have like a different specialty. So
Yeah,
what I forgot what MANA stands for. Is
it's
it
mise à niveau en art appliqué.
oh, okay, so they're basically it's basically like applied arts, so kind of like arts and craft school. So there's one that would be more geared towards like fashion and stylism, like the one that you went to,
Yeah.
but there's also one that's more like specialized in woodcraft, or there's another one that's more specialized in I think is there one like that's like more like pottery geared and stuff like that, like kind of.
I don't remember what the first one, because there's illustration at Estienne, but
And there's also graphic design. Graphic
yeah.
design is a big one where like basically, yeah, you would be like designing for like packaging or websites or magazines. Yeah. So it's kind of like, so it is true that like when you don't know at first, you don't know that all of the different schools have like a different specialty. That's really interesting. But fashion is cool though. Did you like
It was of course, there's always something good to learn from this kind of schools, and I learned about color theory and a lot of color history, but
Mm,
the the people in the school, but I think it was specific to my class, because I got a friend who did the same school 1 year later, and she loved the year she spent there. But for me, it was this. They saw me as the weird person who wants to do animation, because
mm,
they wanted to do what the school was specialized for, and I was like, no, I want to draw animation. I
mhm,
don't want to do embroidery or conceive
mhm,
stuff. So they were kind of hostile towards me,
mm.
and so it was a weird year, but I learned a lot, and I learned what I didn't want to do. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's really awesome.
And it got me the space to really try weird stuff. It was really really artistic, like the stereotype of what you would think of an art school. Like they would burn shoes and say, "Oh, this is art." And
I love that. Yeah, yeah, like fine art, like very fine,
yeah, like,
fine
oh,
artsy.
conceptual. You learn to
Yeah.
bullshit your way through the brain through the grades. That's everything is on purpose. It's always an
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. That's so true. I was so disappointed when I kind of like realized that it was like you just have to just like write a big essay. But you have to write it well, but you have to like write a big essay to sell your like bullshit concept, I guess. So funny.
And so that was interesting, and I learned to draw on huge scale of paper. I always drew in just the range of my sketchbooks, and here they were giving me huge piece of paper and do something with it. Okay, that was very interesting, and that's the year I tried Gobelin for the first time, and I I failed, and it was very interesting. I knew, at least I knew what I was expecting for the next time, and I was still very young. So I
Mm,
decided I didn't want to stay in that school because that was not what I wanted to do. So I went to Lisa, which is a private school, and I did the first year of 2D animation there.
mhm.
I had to convince my parents for this one because it was a private school, so they had to put some money in it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was
Mhm.
a little bit hard to do. So what I did was I took them to the Gobelin opening doors and I showed them what was my goal. And they said, okay, you have 1 year of another school to try again. And if you get in, you get
Mm.
in. If you don't, do something or do something
Back
else.
to physics you go.
Yeah, that was kind of this like the 1 year, or I mean, I could have stayed in art school, but I would have had to find a way of financing it myself,
Right.
which was
Yeah.
fair. I mean, they were worried and whatever, but I got in,
Yeah.
so
Nice. It all worked
yeah,
out.
it's just pressure, pure fear of going back to physics.
I mean, honestly, it was kind of the same for me though. I was like, my dad was like, well, have 1 year to get into a good school. So I actually, I wanted to get into Gobelin, but I was like, if I get into any other school, that will do as well, like MK or NSAD. NSAD is the school that Etienne and I were talking about in the previous episode. But yeah, like it was just like the single year to make it work for us. It's so funny. How did you, so at the time that you attended Gobelin, it was only a 3-year curriculum, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I think, well, I think you know a little bit more than I do about what Gobelin is currently like. I think we can kind of like talk about that real fast. I think uh Gobelin when I attended was like 4,000 euros a year, which is yeah, really not bad. But I feel like now they have two different sections. Is that what you're saying? One for
Yes.
French, yeah, one for French students and one for international students.
Yes, that's what I've gathered from what people who teach there now told me and what I've seen on their page. So yeah,
Mm.
it's 4 years, but I think you it's not 4 mandatory years. You can join in the third year directly.
Oh yeah, so basically, yeah, so you have like two ways of like entering. It's like you can either start from year one, or if you have like industry experience of come from another school, you can also apply for the third year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's the French speaking class and the international class where everything is in English.
Do you know if they get different teachers depending on like for example, would the international class get strictly English speaking, or do they also have like the French teachers except they just speak in English?
I think I can't vouch for every lesson, but from what I gathered, they try to have the same teachers for both class. It's just at different times, but they try to have the same people coming in because that would be
Okay,
super unfair if that wasn't the case.
that's true.
So they're trying to find English speaking people, and
Mhm.
which is another challenge because French people are not really fond of speaking English.
We're not so bad, but yeah, we could do
Yeah,
better.
but I mean, now it's getting better, but try to find a 40 years old French animator who's okay to speak English 2 weeks straight.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true.
But they have good people. They have good and interesting people still. I think they still work a lot to get very interesting teachers and
Mm.
committed teachers. So that's good. It's just that
Yeah.
and it's not only that it's 4 years now, it's that the classes they have more people in it. Like when we were
Yeah.
there, it was 25 up to 28 in third year. And now it's minimum 30 and it can go up to 35. And since they have twice the amount of classes, so it's 70 people per year.
Interesting. It's still not that much. 70 people
Yeah.
counting. Yeah. Because when we attended, it was only 25 a year.
Mm.
How did you like studying in Gobelin? How was it for you finding your first gig?
Well, Gobelin was very, very interesting. It was hard for some reasons, for many reasons actually, but it was hard, but I learned so much and I met people from a lot of different backgrounds, artistic or not. So it was really, really cool on that point. I got my level in animation got super high quite fast, and I I like having, structure when I'm learning. So I understand that it's not for everyone, but that's what I was looking for, and that's what I got from the school. So that I was not disappointed in this, and directing short films in team clearly prepared me for working in a studio. So that was really great. I started living on my own as well in Paris when I was in Gobelin. So it was starting to become a grown up, I guess.
Yeah, you were a real adult.
Sort of.
It's kind of funny when you think about it, because it is true that like when you do move to Paris to be a student, you're only like, I don't know, 19, barely 20, and it's like in this big city where like a ton of stuff is happening all the time. And yeah, it can be a little, I don't know. For me it wasn't really scary, but I could see how for, I don't know, someone who comes, who has to leave like all their friends and their family and just being on their own, that can be like a lot.
Yeah, I didn't have like a big cultural reset or anything, because I lived in the suburbs of Paris of my life. So it wasn't like
Okay,
moving to the
nice.
big city, but I
Right.
was living on my own for the first time. I had a roommate, but I wasn't with my parents, and I had to deal with how do you organize the budget?
Yeah.
How do you feed yourself every day and don't forget to drink water or basic stuff, surviving stuff. And I mean, I knew how to cook or stuff like that. It's not that I didn't know how to
Yeah.
basic things, but it was more scheduling everything. And
That's so true.
yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, because the thing is, like, Gobelin doesn't have a campus like colleges here in the US. So it's more similar to what an East Coast university would be like, or like I guess in New York, where you have like the building and then you have your apartment and then you have to like commute and like do, like it's not this big spread campus. Yeah, what was your first gig and how did you go about finding it?
Um, what was my first gig? Oh yeah, my first gig was storyboard for a short a series for children. It was called Kobushi, and it was about sushi, samurai sushi.
That is so funny. Yeah, I remember this. We went, yeah. That was my first gig as well.
Yeah.
Wow, Kobushi bringing all the talents. Just for people listening, Kobushi is the very first TV show that Zactoon, the studio producing Miraculous Ladybug, made. So it was very tiny. It was a tiny budget and crew, but I learned a lot. Do you feel like you learned a bunch on the
Yeah,
show as
so,
well?
so
Like
did
this?
I. So did I. It was, well, first of all, I learned how to use Storyboard Pro. So thanks,
Yes.
thanks, Nicola, for teaching us this.
Nicola is great. I should get him on the podcast eventually. He's like so creative, knows a ton, and is a mastermind of economical animation.
So much energy, and it's super nice, and always we are very patient and very willing to give young animators and artists a chance. So that
Yeah.
was very, yeah. I learned a lot. I don't remember how much time I stayed on this production. Quite a lot, almost a year, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
The series in itself was meh, but the team was great, and it was very formative. Yeah, it was nice, and it was the animation was done outside of the country, so I learned as well how to communicate with studios that are speaking another language, and there's always this sort of lost in translation informations when you send storyboards and you figure out that, oh, I have to be more clear about what I draw, what I do, and what it
Yeah.
means.
Yeah. I think that's a huge part of storyboards. They're basically a blueprint for overseas studios, and you not only have to draw, do you have to have very clear drawings, but you also have to in the action notes. Well, depending on the show that you're working on, sometimes like people are more lenient with action notes, but on Kobushi we were writing our own action notes, and you have to use very simple language and make sure that it will translate well, but people will get it.
Yeah, I remember, especially doing walk cycles and stuff like that. And if you didn't specify that you would want someone to walk in, they would just slide the model right through the screen with no animation.
That is, yeah, so true. That is so true. It's something that you don't
And you don't
think
think, yeah,
about.
you don't think about it.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, of course, that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. That's so true. After Kobushi, so I know that you worked on a bunch of shows. You worked on both CG and 2D shows.
Yes.
What would you say are the differences between working on a 2D show and a CG show? Do you have a favorite?
I don't think I have a favorite because both have interesting ways of dealing with storytelling and how you showcase stuff. So I think the main difference for me is that usually in 3D series, at least, I'm not speaking about Arcane because they had much more budget than any other series. That's not a secret. Uh,
Mm,
but other 3D series, they still have more budget than 2D series, so you can afford more things. But you have to be
mm,
very careful about limitations as well. But you can do camera movements and you can afford yourself to go a little bit more crazy about how you put your characters in. And you know that in 3D, you're going to have banks of animation about walking, running, and things that are not too hard to reuse.
mm,
Uh, but in 2D, it's more economical, but that's more challenging as well. So I like that. It's about being creative and like, okay, we can't do that. Well, let's figure out a way of doing it more efficiently or for cheaper.
mhm,
But that works as well. So that, for example, on a 3D series I worked on at Timto, we could do a lot of crazy cartoonish actings, which was fun. But on the other
mhm.
hand, I had an episode that was only about a flood and water everywhere, and and
No,
the
that's the worst
and
thing to do in
and
3D.
they told me, okay, so we have a problem because the channel has greenlit this episode, but we can't show water on the screen, so everything has to be off screen. It's just about
No.
suggestion. Like, okay, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be yeah.
That is
I
crazy.
have no idea how the episode turned out in the end, but it was hard.
Was it for Angelo? Was it for Angelo?
No, it was for My Night and Me.
Oh, wow.
No,
Yeah.
Max Maleo wouldn't have let that pass through him, I think. He
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
director on Angelo when I was working on it, and no, he would have said no. He would have said that's not
Oh
happening.
my God. Yeah, because also a quick thing is like the director in when people talk about directors in France, a director is closer to what a supervising director would be doing in America. So or a showrunner, like
Yeah,
being a director on a French TV show is a little bit in between a showrunner, so an executive producer, and a supervising director. But yeah, so that's why like someone like Max could have kicked back a script. and said like, no, we're not doing this script. That's so interesting. Holy moly. Oh my god. How is it like working like on Angelo? Because Angelo is airing on Cartoon Network, I think.
Oh, is
I think
it?
I think so. I don't know. It's like Cartoon Network US or is it Cartoon Network Angelo? Is it Team Angelo in English?
Don't
Um,
Angelo Rules, I think.
yeah, Angelo Rules airs on Cartoon Network in over 152 countries. It's in the US and premiered on January 2010.
Yeah, well, that honestly, it was very fun. It was. I'm not a fan of the aesthetic of the series, to be honest. I think it's
It does look a little, I mean, it looks like a 2010 cartoon.
it
You know what I'm
in
saying?
yeah, that's so it was great in 2010, but it's still running and they're still doing new season now, and it hasn't really evolved. So that's what I'm a bit sad about. But the humor is very fun. I had a lot of fun storyboarding on this series. We were allowed we had a lot of leeway on how we could do gags and even suggest some. So that was very fun. The director Max was very open and very yeah, he wasn't protecting his stuff like, no, I want this way. He was always open about suggestions. And to me, Angelo made me think a little bit about Malcolm in the Middle, but for
Oh,
younger
yes,
audience. It's
exactly.
it's the same level of stupidity,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
in a nice way. It's just always uh, reacting about a situation. You just choose the much over the top reaction you could think of, and that's how it goes. So it was very fun. I did a one episode about uh, a sort of AI and about uh, and sort of Alexa device in the house, and it was so crazy. I had the most fun on this episode, I think.
Do you remember if the writers were French or American?
I think it depends on the seasons. I think on the second season it was mostly French, but I think on the third it
Mm.
was a mix of half and half.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is also something that I like in the French animation industry. We do have a lot of mostly like French writers, but it does happen that sometimes if it's a co-production between a French studio and an American network, that they will bring in American talents to write on the show, which is kind of interesting. Or like Canadian as well, when there's like a Canadian co-production. Like we'll have like Canadian writers to do half of the episodes. That is so fine. I think yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that like the Malcolm in the Middle thing, because I do think family, you know, like suburban type family, like you know, cartoon about a family, they usually do really well, and I think that's why they're still like running
Yeah.
for like season. What season are they on? Do you know?
I think they're starting on season 5 or
Season 5.
6. 5 or 6, I don't know.
Wow.
Because they had a break during the pandemic, so I think it's
Yeah.
5. But yeah.
Wow. That's very cool. Do you remember kind of how the crew was on Angelo? Was it did you guys have how many storyboard artists? Did you guys have directors? Did you have a supervising director?
Well, we had so the main director, so most equivalent to a showrunner, who was Max, and then we had a head of storyboard, but
Okay.
there was no in between.
Okay.
And I think we were like 3 to 5 story artists and one story head of story,
Mhm.
and we had one episode per story artist, except for the specials, which were longer, so we were working 2 story artists for one special.
Mm. How long is how long it um what was the running time for an episode, and kind of like how many pages would you get for how long would you have to storyboard the full episode?
And Angelo episodes were 11 minutes and a half,
Mhm.
and we would have 5 wait, was it 4 or 5? I want to say 4 weeks, 4 working weeks, so 20 days
Mm.
to finish the episode. So thumbnails, clean up, and we had to do a pre-animatic as well, so we had to time it. And most of the time it was longer. The animatic would go for 13 or 14 minutes because the script was always too long, and then they would edit it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's usually the case. We usually scripts usually run a little long. Like usually the thing is like it's supposed to be a page a minute. But
It's never.
it's yeah, it's usually we get like for an 11-minute, it's very rare to get 11 pages. Usually you'll get something more like 15 pages.
But we were. It was the thing that was bad. I mean, that was not really legal. Was that we were paid for, a forfait.
Oh
So
yeah, so you're basically paid to the task,
yeah,
which means that instead of being hired by a studio, like in the US, for example, they tell you, okay, you're going to be hired to work for a year on this show. Uh, in France, it's unfortunately very common that studios will hire a storyboard artist for a storyboard, which means that they'll hire you, they'll pay you only for the 4 weeks, but they still expect you to turn in the storyboard. So if
yeah,
you ever go over, which means that if you need 5 weeks because I don't know, something happened in your life, I don't know, you had to go to a funeral or something, I'm going full drama here, but like you had to take time.
or the producers didn't count well, and
Yeah, well the thing is that like you're still getting paid only for the four
yeah,
weeks no matter how much time you had to take off. So uh that's what we mean. It's kind of like freelancing basically in that sense, but unfortunately productions are run that way. So which also means that if you want to hop off the show, if you're like, I don't really like working on this show, it's fine. After one episode you can
yeah,
just be like, actually I'm done. But it also means that if the studio is not happy with your work, they could be like, well, that was great to have you. All right, well, you don't have to come back in
yeah.
after one episode. So you don't really, it's very, the stability. There is a moral contract, but it's not very, like, you're not legally protected, I guess.
No, that's the problem, is that usually they would say, okay, we're hiring you for, let's say, I don't know, 6 episodes, but they can just fire you after the second or the first or the third, and you never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and if you go out of the schedule, you're not paid, but they're expecting you to finish it. And most of the times they know that you can't fit what they're asking of you in the time they allow you. So, but we're
Yeah.
right now, since a few years, story artists are really fighting this system because that's not a good system. And it's more studios are going into the legal way of paying you every day you work, which should be the basis.
Oh, that's right. I remember just around the time that I left, it was starting to become a little more common that people would pay you by the day.
Yeah,
So you would have like, yeah. So you would have like a weekly salary
yeah,
instead of, I mean, in France, you get paid at the end of the month. in in the US, you get paid every week. In France, you get paid at the end of the month. But what you get at the end of the month would equal what you would make for every week that you worked.
mm.
Yeah. That's cool. When did you get your first gig in feature? And was that before or after glitch text?
It was before.
Mm,
So in 2016, I did a training at Ordman.
mm-hmm.
It was great.
Oh, that's very cool. What project? Yeah, what did you train on?
I trained on Early Man. So
Mm,
I know it didn't perform that well because there wasn't a lot of advertisement for this movie, but it was very, very interesting. And I unlearned a lot of habits that I got from working on series. Because
mm,
and working on series, I knew how to be fast and how to be effective and efficient. It was like,
mm.
okay, I got this. I don't have a lot of time. So first ID that comes is the ID that stays in the board. So it's just working fast and good. But here there was much more room for trying things, and my mentors were very, very patient and very good at showing me that, okay, you don't have to pressure yourself and perform that fast. You can take your time. And the first script I got, there was a moment in the script where it was written, something fun happens. And at first I was super annoyed. Like, that's not my job to find a gag. I don't have time for this shit. What should I do? I'm not a funny person. And they said, no, it's actually fun to find some gags. And when I realized that, okay, I have time to think about something, and it was very freeing for me. And I realized that, okay, I can be fun, and actually I have some ideas that can be very nice to suggest. And I realized that, okay, I'm not just a doer, and I can embrace the more, I wouldn't say directing side of storyboarding, but the artistic side at least.
Yeah, like the more creative, because
Yeah.
you're not just a wrist executing ideas anymore. Now you have time
Yeah,
to
exactly.
actually think about it. Yeah, that's great.
So I was doing that, and I stayed a little more than 2 months in Bristol working for Anne, and then I got a gig working on Petit Vampire by Joanne Sfar.
Oh yeah, by the way, if anyone listening to the podcast is into French comics, Joan Spa, I guess Joan Spar, if I was to pronounce it with an American accent. He's one of the he's a very prolific and very big comic artist from, I would say, like a new wave of comics in France. He studied philosophy, so his comics often deal with like kind of broader themes about, like, I don't know, like human condition, or I guess stuff like that, you would say. Like, I guess Petit Vampire is like his kids version of that, because, you know, as there's a little bit of that going on into Petit Vampire, right?
Yeah, it's about death and dealing with the loss of a parent, and dealing about what does it mean to be alive, and having a family and finding friends. Almost all his works are autobiographic in a way or another. So
yeah, it's very like it's very personal, but in a very sweet way. I feel like he kind of fits in this kind of French legacy of auteurs like Saint-Exupéry, who's like the Little Prince author. It's kind of like that type of vibe.
Yeah, and the team was wonderful on Petit Vampire. I'm not quite happy about what I did on storyboard on Petit Vampire, because I came back from Bristol thinking, yay, I can create stuff and I can suggest stuff, and this is nice. I'm a whole new person. And then bam, on Petit Vampire, it was the opposite, because Joanne has a very straight vision of what he wants, because it was an adaptation of his comic books. So he arrived at the studio with thumbnails already done, and it's like, I want this, and I don't want one more drawing about this. I just want to see my drawings cleaned up. So it was more a hand drawing what they want you to draw. So
I think it's very true that it's like this auteur perspective, where it's like, it's almost like if you're like, if it's more similar to, like, you know, working on like a manga, where like the mangaka does all the pencils and writes all the story and does everything, and then the assistants are like cleaning up the drawings and like making everything pretty. It's kind of more like that.
Yeah, it was very much like that.
Yeah,
but it was a feature film, so we had time to work, and the team was amazing. So I'm not regretting anything at all. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. No. I just think it's like, no, I just like to mention that, because it's very interesting how projects are so dependent on the person, on the leadership. So if you have a leader who has a very, very specific idea, Well, sometimes I think that's freeing because you're not iterating again and again and again and again. You know what you have to do, and it's very straightforward, and it's more about craft and draftsmanship. And then you have the leaders that are like, well, you guys just like, I want to know what you're thinking. And then when that happens, it's a lot more of like iterating, pitching stuff, like breaking everything down and like, you know, like throwing things away and like starting from scratch again, like that. So it's like depending on leadership, you have very different styles of project, really. That's really cool. How long was that? How long was
I
the
think it
experience on?
was a little more than a year. Yeah, a year and a month on the Petit Vampire.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I got to work on glitch text as an animator. So I got back to
Yeah, how was
animating.
that? Yeah.
It was great. It was very refreshing from storyboarding. I went into this gig with a lot of doubt about, can I animate? Do I know how to do this? How I was that dog mean with physics, chemistry instruments. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. That was me.
Yeah.
That was exactly this, and moreover, because we worked on Toon Boom Harmony, and we got a 2 weeks of formation on the soft, which was great because it was a paid sort of mentorship, and it was just the whole team that would start 2 weeks later. So we got to know each other through these 2 weeks of learning the soft. So
That's
that
great.
was
Yeah.
great. It was 10 people not knowing how to use a soft and going like, yeah, we got this. That's gonna go
Wait,
well.
were you guys only 10 animators on Glitch Tax?
At first, yeah, but then they hired many more.
Okay, because I was like, there's no way 10 people
No.
can animate a whole show.
No. It was just the first batch. It was, and then at least 12 more came in. And I left, how many months did I stay? I think I left 6 or 7 months after I started, and after I left, I kept hiring more, and there was another studio overseas that did a little bit in betweening, I think, and cleaning up. So yeah, I think at max we were like 30, 40.
30, that's not that much. That's really not that much. Were you guys doing rough animation? Were you doing key animation, would you say?
We
Or
were doing layout, posing, animation, and on some shots it was only key animation because they would do puppet, so it would be done by someone else. But on the traditional animation shots, we were doing everything. And
wow, yeah.
it was a very fun team. That's where I met my current boyfriend. So I have fond memories of this production.
Oh, that's really great. How long would you say, can you describe the quotas a little
Oh
bit?
yeah.
Would you like, how long did you have to do a shot, and kind of how did they go about the workload?
So let me remember it correctly. I think it was like 3 seconds per day.
Okay.
Either 6 seconds of rough anim or 3 seconds of cleanup per day.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That makes
And
sense.
at first it was just we were doing shots in chronological order, but they realized that that was not the best way of doing things. So we just split the shots between the hardest one to animate, or the money shots, if you could call them like this, and the ones that
Yeah.
that needed less attention. And so there were like the Sakuga shots that were given to the best animators, and then the easiest one, if you could say, that were you had. So the quotas were not the same depending on what you were working on. Actually, it depended if it was a very Sakuga action shot, they would have more time to do it because it was an important one, and the
Right.
other way around as well.
That's very
And
cool.
the directors and the showrunners came at least 3 times, I think, at Studio 100. So they were very present, which was very enjoyable because
Oh, so you guys ended up being at Studio 100.
yeah,
You guys weren't at Xilam because I
no,
remember there was a talk about like getting Xilam but okay, very very interesting. That's really cool,
yeah,
really
it was done
cool.
at Studio 100. But they did a test at Xilam,
Mm-hmm.
but from what I gathered, the budgets that they couldn't get an accord in accordance on the budget,
Mm-hmm.
so they ended up with Studio 100. So the animation was made in Studio 100.
Mm-hmm. Studio 100, also known as Studio 100
Yeah, she's
for Americans listening.
thinking in
Um,
French, like yeah, Studio 100.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really cool. Wow. I'm so glad that they paid for training for you guys because I
Yeah,
think this is something that's really hard. Now in animation, there's so many softwares to learn. Like literally, I am working on a show that we storyboard in Blender.
yay!
And I know, right? But fortunately for us, we were trained to
Oh, that's
learn
so
Blender.
great. That's so
So
nice.
oh yeah, that was like a major selling point for for because I was like, yes, please. Really, that's really interesting. Yeah, softwares are like there's always new softwares. Every company is gonna do a big push for their softwares to be used by a lot of people. Animation employs a lot of people, so definitely. That's really cool. After animating for Glitch Tech, what did you work on?
What did I work on after? Oh, yeah. So I took a quite big break of 5 months. I went to Japan because why not? Just for like
Yeah. Did you spend 5 months in Japan?
no. I wish.
Okay.
No, no, I went for a week visiting friends who were working there, and
Mm,
then I came back and I worked on a personal project, which I am still working on.
mm.
And
Can you talk
oh,
about it a little bit?
yeah,
Is it a
it
short
is a
film?
short film. It's almost a clip. It's a short film, an adaptation of a poem by Brenna Twowy. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I talked with her by email and she gave me the rights to work on the adaptation, and I'm currently looking for producers. So it's a
Very
yeah.
cool. If a producer's
Yeah, if
listening,
you
hit up
if you want to
Alice.
produce
Yeah.
a 3.40 minutes, so yeah, 3 to 4 minutes of really beautiful 2D animation, contact me. So I worked on this, and then I got a call to work on the show Stinky Dog, which is Shampooé in French. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did layout posing there.
That's cool that they're still doing layout posing.
Yeah. This series looks like it's only puppet, but it's not. There's a lot of 2D animation, traditional.
Holy cow, it looks
It's
amazing. So
super
I was not
cute.
aware about yeah, I was not aware of this production, but if you guys are listening, this looks a lot like Ernest and Celestine. I say that because people who are familiar with French animation usually know Ernest and
It was done
Celestine.
in the same studio as
Yeah.
Ernest de Celestine. So
So beautiful. It's a TV
it
show?
is, yeah.
Holy moly. This is,
I
yeah.
really I hope they do a feature film. They should, because it's so cute.
Oh my gosh. And it's Marc
Yeah,
Bouchardon who is part of the writers. He is an amazing artist. Such a, like his illustrations are so cute. Yeah, he was also the author of with the little bear.
oh, jeez, what's the name?
Mook.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking to if you want to kind of look into French preschool animation, Mook is so beautiful. It's really really amazing. Wow, so cool. How long was that? And was this in TV Paint?
No,
What
it was on Harmony. It was on Toon Boom Harmony.
Harmony?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Mm.
it's so yeah. I forgot that between this and Glitch Text, I did a really short gig for the feature film Fireheart. and
Mhm.
it was in the film was made in Montreal, and I worked on on remotely from Paris. And I remember at the time I said, "Oh, I hate this. I don't want to work from home ever." Uh,
Yeah,
and
and then the
then
pandemic happened.
the pandemic happened, and ironic. But so Shampooy, I worked for 9 months on Shampooy and Stinky Dog.
Let me see if I can. Stinky dog. Let me Google it just so people. Okay, if you Google Stinky Dog animated
I don't
series,
know if there's an
uh,
English version, but the French version, the voice actors are awesome. It was very, very
there
fun.
is a there's a TV series trailer, so you guys can definitely check it out. So cute. I love this. Yeah.
It
Wow.
was
Yeah.
an amazing experience. I came back from working. I had done some gigs as story artist between, and then I realized I came into this studio with crazy animators and very, very welcoming people. Honestly, Folivari and Faust was my best experience on a production, because
Oh,
yeah,
really? That's great to know.
100% would recommend.
If you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, check out the YouTube video to get a little glimpse of Chien Pourri on because I just imported an image on the Jamboard. Else you can just Google Stinky Dog animated series and you'll
And
find the trailer.
the
So
series
cute.
worked so well that they did like an OVA. They put 4 or 5 episodes together, and they displayed it in cinema, in theaters.
Oh, that's so cool. So you guys got a
Yeah,
theatrical
yeah.
release. That is awesome. I love that. Ah, so good. So good. I'm so glad that it was also a good experience. How was I like to talk technical
Yeah.
details also. So if you can, because layout has been disappearing as a craft, so I'd love to know a little bit if you can explain what layout posing is for our audience, and if you can explain if you can tell us a little bit like what was the what were the quotas like,
Yeah.
kind of, all that jazz.
Well, so everything on Stinky Dog was made in France. So that was really nice as well, because uh,
Oh,
yeah,
even the animation, you
animation,
mean?
compositing, everything.
Mm.
So the layouts posing on the series. So we had the storyboards imported in Toon Boom Harmony, so we would see what the framing was, and it was an hybrid production. There were some puppets on the close-ups, and on all the full body shots, it was traditional animation.
Mm.
And we take the storyboard and we draw the posings, the kind of like the keyframes, but not all the keyframes of an animation, only the one that
Mm.
would matter in a term of where does the character moves and go, and what are the extreme posings.
Yeah, so basically it all looks good
Yeah,
in the shot, right, for the
yeah,
composition. Yeah, and that the character scales
yeah,
properly with
yeah. Like
perspective.
put them in the perspective, put them in the right scale according to the background. So, and
And
yeah,
put
put
them on
them on
model.
model, prepare all the layers and the template, so the animator has everything ready when they start working on it. And
Mm.
when it was puppet, we would prepare the puppets as well. So we import the puppet, and we make sure they are the right size and it's the right puppets, because there were many versions of the same character.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's something that's really interesting too. We haven't really mentioned like the nitty-gritty of animation, but I guess depending on the emotion or what the character is doing, you're gonna use a
Yeah,
different
there
puppet.
was different riggings, and since on this show,
Mm.
there's a lot of texture in the brush and everything, there were different scales of the same puppets. So
Mm.
don't mess up with
Mhm.
the scale and the brush, because it happened a lot. And we would have to prepare as well like the areas of, like, for the cat, the mouse area, which is white, so we would prepare all the zones for the coloring afterwards. So the animators wouldn't
Mm.
have to. So I think the animators would not draw over all the color zones, but there was a cleanup artist
Mhm.
that would do it and would prepare for the. And it was a very fun production because you see their legs, especially for the cat, it's just sticks.
Yellow
So it
sticks, so
so
cute.
and they were really insisting on us doing kind of a messy job, going like, this is a leg and this is a leg and that's it. Like, don't do pretty beautiful thing. No, it has to be like this. So it was fun.
Ah, that's nice. Like little sticks. You had to draw them like sticks. Don't draw the
Yeah,
paws. Stick to the stick.
but yeah, anatomically correct sticks.
I love that. Anatomically correct sticks.
And the ears of Stinky Dog were kind of tricky to get because you had to go like this, and there was a specific science to get the right messy, like brushy, messy hair.
Oh, interesting.
Really, it was a very nice. The quotas were strict, but not too much.
Hmm.
Everything was doable. I didn't feel pressured, like, oh no, I can't do this. That's too hard. It was, of course, at the end of an episode, it's always crunch time, but not like unhealthy crunch time. It's just, okay, today you don't take 3 coffee breaks. You take one.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that.
You focus more.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. Like sometimes you have a bad day and you're not focused at all, and then you're like, well, gotta work twice as hard the next day. Yeah. Oh, is that the plushie?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's very
and they're
cute.
so soft.
I'm so glad
My
you
mom
guys got
bought
merch.
2.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, we didn't get for ourselves, but my mom bought 2.
No, but I mean like the show got merch, as in like, a lot of shows usually don't get merch.
And it's working very well. I see them in a lot of children shop.
Really?
It's quite popular, yeah. But the books are well known, and I think they're doing some educational stuff with Stinky Dog as well. There's a big map of Paris, but it's a funny map. So
Mm,
it has some weird anecdotes about the town, and it's from a dog's point of view, so it's super cute. And yeah, it's a very nice show. It was a nice show to work on, but as well, I'm proud of having worked on this. So
yeah,
that's all good for this show.
that's great. How long after that did you get to work? What was kind of like the timeline between this working on Sing 2?
Well, I worked on Sing 2 right after that.
Oh, nice.
Actually, the production on Stinky Dog wasn't finished, but
Mm.
I got recommended for working on Sing 2 by a friend and colleague and a former classmate in Gobelins. It was Sandrine Hanjin Kwang,
Oh,
and
yes. I'd love to get her on the show eventually.
she's so good. She's
So
so
good.
talented,
Hmm.
and I think she was working at MacGuff on Sing 2, and she said, okay, no, not on Sing 2, but she was working at MacGuff, and she wanted to focus on her comic book, so she
Mm.
left, and she said, well, you can contact Alice. She's a story artist. Go and trust her, and so they trusted me, and I got the gig, and I'm very thankful to her because it opened the door to work on feature film again and
Hmm.
on storyboard as well, because I was starting to only get offers for animation, which I like doing, but my main focus is storyboard, so that was
I think
great.
that's something that's very true. I feel like in the American industry as well is like it's very easy for people to put you in a box, and it's actually not that easy to navigate between a craft to another.
It is
And
hard.
yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about your career is that you were able to do both storyboards and animation, even though it sounds like it was hard at times. But yeah, I think it's very cool that you were able to navigate between the two. and kind of like signaling to your colleagues like, hey, I want to get back into boards. So they like
Yeah. But I did do that at first. When I was younger, I wouldn't dare. I was just taking what was offered, and then I said, okay, but I I want to do board. I want, in the end, in the long term, I think I want to direct something or
Mhm.
do more directions.
Mhm.
And when I left Folivari, I really insisted to my head of production, and I said, okay, it was awesome working on Shampooey, on Stinky Dog, but remember, I'm a story artist, so call me when you need story artists. Don't just call me if you need posing artists, because
Mhm.
that's not even my priority, but I think I excel more in storyboard than in animation.
Yeah, I know what you
So
mean. That's one of the big reasons why I went to storyboard. Was like, I was like, I'm not a shit animator, but I'm not like the best animator. Like, especially
yeah,
when you you look at your colleagues and you're like, I don't know.
I turn around and I see my boyfriend and I'm like, no, why should I do what he does? He does it better and faster.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm gonna throw some stories. That's my shit. That's what I do. That's how I.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And how was it working on
So
Sing 2? Because Sing 2 just came out. So I don't know if people
yeah,
have like seen it, but
go
um
watch it. It's nice.
and I really enjoyed Sing, the first movie. I
Mm,
haven't seen Sing 2 yet, but the first Sing was just so fun. The designs are great.
mm.
The story is just, honestly, I was surprised. There's like some twists that you don't expect. Like it's just always kind of, it's just a fun movie. It's a really fun
It
movie.
is, and there are a lot of characters, and you still manage to remember what's happening to everyone, which is a challenge because in the first one there are like 7 or 8 main characters, and
Yes. Hmm.
everyone gets an arc and gets a closure. So they managed to do something very, very good with the first one, and they did a very good thing with the second one. There are even more characters, and we still managed to get something out of everyone.
Yeah,
So
like care
it was
about
it was
them and like actually root for them and their story. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was when I joined the project. I joined the project on. There was only already the first arc of the film done, and they were kind of finishing it, the second arc. So I joined for the third arc. Well, in the end, they rewrote most of the second arc, so I worked on this as well. But
Mm.
so when I arrived, there was already a big animatic ready for me, and
Hmm.
it was already looking very good. And it was really, when I joined MacGuff, everybody told me, okay, so you're working for big American production, so you won't have all the creative income you may want to put into the film. They're going to ask you to do things a specific way and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, it wasn't the case. I could suggest a lot of things and I had a lot of freedom. And I think Garth Jennings is a wonderful director and is extra fun to work with, but has a lot of amazing ideas.
Mm.
And he puts you at ease with the project and gives you a lot of freedom, and it says, okay, so that's a sequence, but you know suggest stuff and feel free to say what you want. And it's not just a way of speaking, like you can really say if something is bothering you, like that's weird, this phrase doesn't work with the character or stuff like that. He is always open to discussion and to what he wants is to produce a good movie, and he does what it is needed to be done to do so. So that was great.
I think that's really true what you say about like sometimes you do have to figure out if someone really mean it when they say, "Oh, I want to know your opinion and what you think, and I want you to pitch ideas." It's good that because sometimes people will say it just to kind of to kind of have the atmosphere and be like, "Yeah, like but in some cases you kind of have to read between the lines and kind of know if like,
Mm,
okay, can I actually pitch something here? So it's really amazing to hear that Garth being very open and collaborative. That's like the dream, right? Yeah. That's
mm.
really awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah, it was really nice, and it was the first time I worked on a kind of triple A production,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to jump back on the water and the flood scene in the series. Well, here I had a sequence where they fall into a swimming pool, and it was my first sequence, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I know it costs a lot to put water, so I framed it like this and this, so it's easier. And then the director arrives and says, no, you do what you want, put more water, we don't care, do what you want, we want a crowd, put a crowd. Like, oh, okay, and that's a lot of budget, okay, cool. So that was it kind of puts you have creative and budgetary freedom, which is
Yes.
super rare, and it's great to have this experience at least once in a career, so you're like, okay, I can do anything. So that frees you from a lot of puzzles you have to fix in other gigs.
Yeah, that's very true.
But you mustn't get used to this, because that's not how like 90% of the industry works. But but it was nice.
Yeah. Unless you have a career in future, I guess. But yeah, yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah,
great.
but even, I mean, right now I'm working on a French feature film, but it's 2D, and and at least twice a week we hear, oh no, that's too expensive, let's not do that, no, we cannot
Oh
afford.
no. Can you talk about the project?
I can say the name. It's a
Mhm.
temporary name. It's the Métaphysique des tubes. It's an adaptation
Oh,
from Amélie Nothom's book.
yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that. That's so interesting. I think it's my favorite book of hers. So how would I pronounce this with an American accent? Amelie Nothomb, I guess.
Yeah,
She's a Belgian author, right?
yeah,
I think, yeah, she's a Belgian author. She's very, very big in the French speaking countries, I guess.
yeah,
And Métaphysique des tubes is her autobio of when she was a child in Japan. So
yeah,
I think
exactly.
there's been a couple pictures out. It looks really
Yeah,
cool.
there's a teaser pilot as well on Vimeo.
I think it would be the metaphysics of tubes
Yeah,
if you would
I think that it's a work in progress title. They're working on the definitive
oh, so they
title.
might call it something different.
Yeah, they might
Interesting.
call
Oh
it
yeah.
just Amélie, or I don't know.
Amelie would be kind of bumping against Amelie from
Yeah,
like live action.
that's why they're not sure yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna import a picture of it. It's really cool because it is because
It's so
it's a
beautiful.
woman. Uh, it would be a woman autobio, and it's like it's a woman's like journey and stuff. So I think that would be really awesome to have something like that.
Yeah, it's directed by Lian Shoan, and it's his first feature. But he worked on Langouet North and Calamity as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are great. Gee, back to sing really fast
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like how is the timeline between wrapping up with Sing 2 and Arcane? And
Oh,
like
yeah. Arcane was before, actually.
oh, it was
Yeah, it
before
was
Sing 2.
before.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, Arcane has been going for a long time.
Oh,
uh,
can you say when you started on the show?
okay, so I started on Arcane July 2017.
July 2017.
Yeah,
Awesome. And how long were you on the show, if you
eight
can say?
months.
8 months. Very cool.
It was
Uh,
I was on season 1.
Season 1. Nice. What can you say maybe like what softwares were you using?
Yeah, we were working on TV Paint.
Very cool.
At least
Very
when I
cool.
was on the production, that's what we used. But I think that
Mm.
didn't change.
can you say how the teams were, or like kind of like how many people were working in boards, or
When I was there, we were still a small team. I think it changed a lot after I left.
Mhm.
But when I was there, we were 6 plus the head of story, so 7.
Oh, very cool, very interesting. Yeah, what was the production that you went to after Arcane wrapped up for you?
It was glitch text.
Oh, glitch text,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
wrapped up. I wrapped up Arcane in the end of January 2018, I think, something like that, around those months. And
Mm-hmm.
a month and a half later, I started on glitch text. I think I was very tired of doing a storyboard for a while, and there was this animation gig that was opening up, and I thought, yeah, let's try animation to see if I can still do it as well.
I think that's actually that's like so smart that, when you've been doing a thing for a long time, because it's kind of what I run into, and this is going to tie into our creative block question really well. But like I've been doing boards for 10 years, and after a while, you do know how to storyboards. Like, okay, you might not be having all the best ideas and know all the best shots, but there's a part of you that knows the craft really well. And it is nice to have a little refresher by like still working in the industry, but like trying a different craft. So I think that's such a great thing that you were able to do, going between storyboards into animation for a short while. Do you feel like that helped you kind of get over the burnout a little bit of like
Yeah,
doing boards in general? Yeah.
definitely. And one thing I've noticed is that maybe it's just a coincidence, and that's not. I don't want to generalize, but one thing I noticed is that story artists, at least in France, tend to be more secretive about their work. Like they work on on their own, and they don't really share what they do with the other people of the team. There's a lot of competition, I feel.
Yeah.
And when I went doing animation, it was much more almost sibling like in the relationship with other animators. It's more like, oh, what did you do? Oh, you did this. Look, it moves. Oh, it's terrible. Or oh, it's good. And they're helping each other. And there's not
Mm.
this kind of fear of displaying what you did. And it's maybe because, well, storyboard is more personal, maybe. So you feel more exposed when you show and you share what you did. And in animation, even if someone says, "Oh, you could fix this or that," it's about technicality. You don't take it personally. But
I agree.
I noticed that whenever I worked in animation, the ambience in the room was friendlier. Not that story artists are not friendly, but they're more under pressure, I feel
I
like.
think that's I think that's really what it is. Yeah, like board artists have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
It crunch time is real,
it
and they're
is.
like you get burnt out pretty fast. And I also believe that it's very solitary. You're very much on your own when you work on boards, like, because you have like it's kind of like making comics, but you have a script instead of
Yeah.
instead of like drawing your comic basically.
But but
Yeah.
but so animation was kind of a good a good refresher for my mind to just
Mm.
feel less pressure than just, okay, you do what you do. And I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing what animators do, because that's clearly not what I want to say. It's just that I felt the mood was very different. So my
Mhm.
love always goes to storyboard, but it's nice to be able to switch and clear your mind from. And I think if I could do background, maybe I would do this as well. I can't for the life of me. I hate perspective, but clearly, uh, I had another story artist friend who told me, and I think that's a good summary of the situation. It's like when I feel I do storyboard for a while, and when I feel like I hit the how do you say that in English? When I hit my limit, or when I feel like what I'm
Mhm.
drawing is shit, basically, I
Mhm.
go do animation. He does this with 3D animations because it comes from 3D animation, but and so when he hits the roof of his limit in storyboard, it goes back to animation and he does 3D animation until he hits the roof of his limit, and it goes
Mm,
back and forth like this. And he told me that's how I keep myself
same.
sane. Yeah.
That sounds like a great segue into creative block.
Yay.
Would you say what does creative block sound feel like for you, and how do you get over it? Like, if
If I do somehow get over it.
yes.
um, for me, a creative block is a mix of self-doubt and a lack of stimulation.
Mhm.
Um, it's like right now I'm very, very motivated to do drawing for myself, but sometimes not at all. So I figured out that when I cannot draw for myself because I'm too tired or I just don't feel like it's working, I try to do other craft. And what I did for a while when I was struggling with unemployment as well,
Mm.
I thought, okay, I don't want to draw because it reminds me of work and I put myself under a lot of pressure doing so. So I started learning how to sew and I started doing
Oh
cosplay, and it was there was no goal at all. It's just, okay, I like this costume, so I'm gonna do this costume and I'm gonna have an outfit that I can just wear like this.
Did you
And
use any of the knowledge that you got from your mana from like before,
I
right? Because you studied fashion for a little bit.
yeah, but I didn't study sewing. They never taught us how to sew or how to do a pattern or stuff like that. It was just artistry. So I'd love to say, yeah, I used this, but no, actually, I learned from with my grandma. I learned with my grandma everything.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's such a great way for you also to just kind of like have ties with family. Oh, that's so great. I love that.
Yeah, I went. I remember one time. So I was unemployed, and I said, okay, I'm coming for a week, and you're gonna show me how you do things. And she taught me
Mhm.
so much. So I owe her everything I know about sewing and crafting with fabric. So I did this
Oh,
with
that's great.
cosplay. I did this with bakery. Actually, that was one of the questions that the jury asked me at Gobelin for the oral test. They
Yeah, so
saw,
like the
yeah,
interview.
the
Yeah.
interview, yeah. Yeah, not oral. My God.
It's okay. Don't worry. I used to do this all the time as well.
Shh.
I don't know. Maybe we could keep
Yeah,
it in so people know that I didn't mean anything at the time. It's just
I'm
how we say it
sorry.
in French.
During the interview on my resume, there was in interpersonal interest. There was bakery and baking, and they said, "Oh, why?" And I didn't know what to answer. It just came out of me like, well, baking is a way of creating stuff, and it satisfies everyone. That's the best way of doing things." And and I still think that it's just okay. You don't want to draw, and so I think when I'm quite a lazy person, I think. So when I have creative block, I don't feel like, exercise or do stuff like this. I don't want to move because if I'm
Yeah.
hitting creative block, is that I'm already kind of depressed. And I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm way past the physical activity, so I want to keep my mind busy and yeah, baking, sewing, or nothing that deals with storytelling directly, but still
Mm.
starting from scratch and ending up with something. It's always satisfying to me, as at
Mhm.
least. And and when it hits very hard, well, I just try to go somewhere I don't know to stimulate my mind. I mean, when I said I went
Mm.
to Japan, that's what I did because it was a hard time in my for my mental health. and I just felt like fleeing somehow. I just didn't want to stay stuck in Paris and like, okay, I have to find a job, I have to do this and this is bad. So I just saw there was good prices to go to Japan, and I just left to and gathered all the infos I could see, and just everything visually, culturally, and food-wise, people-wise. I just changed my mind literally. And I know it's kind of privileged to say it. I don't say go to Japan to deal with creative block. I mean, that's you can.
Yeah, definitely. No, but it's like you can go to a place to reset your
Yeah.
mind. You don't have to go across the globe, but just somewhere that you're not you're not all the time, because I think that's definitely like, it's very easy when you're doing something, and I noticed that for myself as well. It's like, you work, you're always sitting on the same chair, and sometimes just going in another part of town, hanging out in like in a different coffee shop, hanging out in a different library that you're not used to going, that could just kind of help you reset your brain. That's great.
I took an extreme example, but yeah, just you just go somewhere you don't know, and you look around, you take even just take a book, or just settle somewhere, and somewhere clear where you never took your troubles before, so you don't have, you're not like, oh yeah, I came here before and I did this and that, and so you think about troubles. No, go where you don't know and create a new space for you and for your mind.
Exactly. I love that. Create a new place for you and for your mind. That's very poetic, and it's also very true. Well, I think that's the end of this creative block. Alice, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a delight, and sorry for my accent.
No, I think that was great. Like, honestly, this accent is very understandable. And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks for editor Clemens for editing the podcast, and Malik for helping us produce the show. If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews as well as bonus episodes. Click the link in the description of this episode. I've been your host, V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Bye.